for 2021. How are we going, guys? Ryan, how are we there? Gents, Toltec, how we doing? Bigacci, well, my eyes aren't too good here, guys. Reading on Instagram, but you're coming in thick and fast. Good to see you all. Our first episode for 2021, our epic failure one. I know it's probably not ideal to start the year off with this, but let's get all the crap out the way and move forward. How we going there, guys? Impala Anthony, how are you? Good to see you. John Tyling, got some more Tylers joining us, which is great to see. Stenogram, how you doing? Jaden Venture, and remember to throw in any questions you've got, and I'll try and answer them all tonight. But great to see many of our friends and faces back. Facebook Live, Instagram Live, and our YouTube Live. So good to see you. We had lots of engagement on our Facebook post today with some of those photos that were given our way on the epic failures. Thanks for your contribution, those. I want to bring this up because there's been lots of talk towards the end of last year, and we started this year off on more positive, I would say, that we had last year with obviously COVID. And you would have seen our episode this week of Sealed for Good, where we did talk about epic failures. And it is a shock to see that we've still got this sort of nonsense going on. I couldn't believe that I'm seeing bitumen sheets on top of liquid membranes, water-based membranes. We had that last year where we spoke about solvent-based polyurethanes with water-based systems. And when is this nonsense going to stop, people? You know, we've got to get this right. There's been so much talk about all the building certifiers now checking out work in Queensland and New South Wales, particularly in Victoria, and we're seeing that come along the whole country. So we've got a question here from Blazy. How are you? Waterproofing requires an implemented system that provides observations and an assessment on compliance and enforcement of the system for the building and construction industry, with a set of recommendations for a national best practice model, aiding in the implementation of the National Construction Code. Waterproofing compliance to quality assurance is neither mandatory or enforceable. Well, that's a great one, and we've got Exemplary Kitchens saying up here, which thank you. Let me make sure I don't lose these questions. So what is the best system to waterproof over cold joints in a slab? I'll come back to that. Dodgy waterproofers with no licenses, that's what I'm seeing daily. And I'm guessing that's a builder, Exemplary Kitchens. Look, it is a problem still. We keep complaining about it, but I go back to Blazy's comments here and what's coming through. I always talk about accountability. If there's one thing that's missing in this industry, it's accountability. And I know we can talk about the waterproofing contractor. I know we can talk about certifiers, but really the final accountability must be with the builder. And if I say that openly, I'm not having a dig at any builder. It's the process. But let's put everything to bed at the moment. When you build a home or you build a building, can you imagine an automotive manufacturer putting a car on the road and then blaming Pirelli tyres that they didn't perform as spec and say it's not our issue? I mean, you put a house or a building together, be responsible for it. I'll guarantee you, if there was accountability for builders to ensure that they kept their warranty to a period of time, you would have their selection of trades and products at a different mindset. And the buck's got to stop somewhere. And unfortunately, it's too easy to point the fingers at various trades or suppliers or someone down the chain. It needs to start at the top, and the builder will be accountable. And I honestly believe that until we get that happening, we're not going to get it right. Delivering solutions with no long-term liability has always been at the forefront when it comes to selecting the right products and ensuring applications that carry out the best practices and current regulations. Very, very true. Ben Lazarato has mentioned, why are we so far behind the US with waterproofing? Well, I've got to tell you, I spent some time in the US over the last couple of years pre-COVID. There are some great things that happen over there, not so great things. It does happen state by state. However, I do agree with that. I use the US and Europe for that matter. And even to the point, there's some parts of Asia where we bag someplace in Asia and we think that we're so far ahead, yet it's not that. That is not the case. We are a little bit further behind than we would like to believe. And it talks about, I think what Blazy's mentioned there and what you're asking there, Ben, is a uniform approach. that at the end of the day, everyone, FC Thailand, how you going, guys? We all say that we want the right thing for the industry. We all say we're getting sick and tired of seeing dodgy waterproofers on site. But the fact is, when the boundaries are so open and wide, people would actually abuse them. I mean, let's look at this situation. What would you do if there were no speed limits on the road? I know I drive safe, but I think I can drive safely at 80 in a 60k zone, and I'd do that. And we don't have those boundaries. I would do that, sorry, let me correct that. I would do that if there were no limits there. But there's a 60k limit. Unless I want a speeding fine, I'm going to keep people safe. I drive safely. If I was allowed to do this while I was driving, I'd keep doing it because the law says there is no law to do it, but there isn't one that says we can. We can't text and drive. So the problem is that when it comes to the building side, we are not having a uniform approach. And state by state, I'm seeing different conversations in WA to what we have here. So surely the training organisation should also be looked at. Yes, I agree with that. Training organisations should be looked at. But someone's got to be the power above that to guide what those training organisations should be doing. Because at the end of the day, someone's got to govern the responsibility. And I've said this before, guys, and we talk about this in our GAP courses a lot. But let's look at electrical and gas. Nobody would allow the stuff that goes on in waterproofing in the electrical and gas industry because there'd be a fire and explosion that would start in a building. Yet because this is like internal bleeding, we don't see it until there's a real problem. We end up then having this problem with just this compounding effect where crap after crap happens. And so when I talked before about the limitations of laws on the road, that we would abuse them, that's happening in waterproofing. You know, there's some photos we didn't show on our Sealed for Good this week that if I showed them to you, because we couldn't, you'd be totally shocked. Bitumen liquid membranes. And unfortunately, the contractor that had put the photos forward thought it was good work. Now, this is the problem, is that the mindset is that they don't see there's anything wrong with it. And there is serious help needed. We've got an unguided trade here. What's Gian Thomas saying? Australian standards for waterproofing aren't good enough. Also comes back to the builder with the structure. And that's what I mentioned before. But the accountability on that, and the great comment, needs to be with the builder. If the builder's held to high standards and his ass is going to get sued in 10 years' time, what do you think would happen to the trades he picks and to the materials that they've got to then select on top of that? And it just filters down the line. Just want to get this here because I've got a couple of builders. I have a bottom floor unit with a bottom concrete slab that's never been waterproof. The unit is 80 years old. The walls are old brick and cracked render. Does 38FC work with render? It does. Certainly does if you want elastomeric coating, or you could use a C1P on that, but that would be the better option, the 38FC. Nook Construction. There should be as many builders here listening here as tilers and waterproofers. Couldn't agree more. We should have the install process products, products and tech coming down the line in the industry. Totally agreed, Nook. And that's a builder talking, and that's what we want. I think we all know what we want, but for crying out loud, someone needs to start listening higher up the chain, because, you know, when I saw that photo of a bitumen sheet on that, I thought, this is back to the future. It's like watching something from 20 years ago. Who the hell would be doing that? And then, you know, what does the applicator say? Oh, the guy at the shop that I bought it from said I could do this. Did they really? Did the data sheet say that for the manufacturer? Do you realize you should be looking at data sheet? All these things, but it's all about where we ensure that the questions are asked right from the top with the builder. And if we're getting some common chat on this, that we believe, and including builders are saying this, that there should be accountability, then it's an even game. Everyone's got to get the quality right. We sort of create this loophole that you don't get to pass go until you've gone past Mayfair. And then you just got to make sure you get the right piece going. A couple of the questions here. The issue of waterproofing failures and defects caused by water penetration has plagued the building industry for many years, resulting in huge rectification and rework costs. Not only are we unsuspecting clients finding themselves with frustrating waterproofing problems, but many builders are ending up with massive holes in their profit margins and irreversible damage to their reputation. The piece on that I'd like to make the comment on. I agree with that, but we've got a culture where there's a lot of builders that don't look at the long term. They make the killer profit up front. They palm it off. There's that 5 to 7 year period state by state. They keep going around with silicon gun to plug up those problems, and then it's not their issue anymore. And that's where the stink is, because it's the owner of the building, the asset building, or the homeowner that deals with this shit. And that's the big problem we've got. Colin Hamilton, how are you? Too many builders shop on price rather than quality. It bites them on the arse eventually, though. Well, that's my comment, Colin. Then I hope that is the case, but we're not always seeing it. Nemanja has, how are you, Nemanja? Good to see you. The minimum requirements for waterproofing are the problem. Very little needs to be done, at least here in SA, and the builders don't want to pay for excessive waterproofing. They all look for compliance only and deem that's not enough when in most cases it's not. Agreed. A couple more comments here coming through on Instagram that I'll read through. Callium Bartlett, how are you? This product going to end up in New Zealand? It's there now, ready to kick and save some New Zealand homes. And I still come back to New Zealand. I would like us as a start to copy what the Kiwis are doing. It's a far better program than what we've got here. Colin's come back in. Major builders are the worst. Their supervisions don't have enough building experience. Colin, are you a contractor or Tyler, builder, waterproofing? Let us know. That's but great comments. Knowing and understanding the failure is at the root of improved product formulations and conscientious application processes. I get all that, and I believe in it. I want to come back to that in a moment, John. If I need here, exemplary kitchens, if I need, it's a self-level concrete slab is here. Okay, this is an actual application. I'm going to get back to exemplary kitchens on those after. I'll read these comments and come back to you on the exact question you want, just to answer that. I just want to stay on this topic for the moment. But I just want to say that on these comments here, we talk about what the improved products required and the procedures, etc. But like I said, I find this a real simple fix. Somewhere in any industry, the buck stops. If I go to the doctors and I have an operation, I expect the hospital and the doctor to trust what was happening. If I go on a plane, I expect the pilot to know his shit and Qantas to know exactly what those engineers are looking at before that plane takes off. We treat waterproofing like it's just an additional thing on site, almost like in some circumstances, it's delivered on site like the portable dunnies. That's how much care is taken. And it's got to stop. But it won't stop until there's a responsibility. Like Qantas can't just let any bogus go in the plane cockpit and fly the plane. They've got reputations and they've got to get compliance. And this is the problem we have. Should waterproofing on top of the Screed also become a compliance? Should waterproofing on top of the Screed become compliance? Look, I think it should in wet areas, particularly in the shower alcove, unless we go with an engineered waterproof Screed, which is available. Nexus wants to know where to find this in New Zealand. You go to Tilemax and they'll look after you. Speak to Isaac there and he's got you covered along with all his stores around the country, and we've got gap training coming over there soon. Colin is a builder. Fantastic, Colin, with 35 years experience and a QA inspector. Waterproofing issues are the biggest defect in our industry. So true, Colin, and unfortunately, it's the one that's least paid attention to and the one that costs us the most. Mudcake Consultancy. Well done, Phil. Thank you. Surely we'll bring the industry up to industry standards and compliance from the 23rd of March 21. Regards, Frank Ross. Thank you. CFS Wollongong. Will solvent-based waterproofing products in Australia be banned due to the effect it has on the environment? Thanks, Joe. That was a good question, and you might have seen that episode that we recently did on that. More importantly, it's not just the environment, it's on individuals. And when you really understand what you're breathing in, I've seen that, and between and solvent-based systems, you really need to look out for that. Blaze has come back. Contractors don't have the level of support when it comes to dealing with system failures. Very true, and unfortunately, and I say this even though it gives us lots of business, that's where companies like Gripset, we have really gone involved and created our own training system to ensure that you do have the backup, because there's a major gap in the whole industry. There's, we've got the AIW, which is it means well, but it's not as powerful enough to give those waterproofers what they need. The Master Tilers Associations or the Tile Association now is not at the point or the power that it needs to be for tilers. I think the trades want to feel like they're looked after, they're wanted, they're owned, and they've got a support level, and that comes from training and advice. The money has come back. Waterproof on top of a screed is a must. I can't understand that a lot of builders have it done below screed only. I don't understand the point of having it below screed on ground floor, yet it complies 100%. Agreed, but it comes back to that there are screed products that actually would handle full immersion in a pool, that you can make an engineered screed that's waterproof and can take that water, yet we don't. And so you can go underneath, you could look at it that way. A waterproof screed then eliminates the need to go on top. But the desperation of over and under has been because architects or designers don't trust the under only. And I get what you're saying because of the saturated floor, very important about talking about standard sand and cement screed. And I agree with you. And if that's the case, then you can use a standard. I mean, the standard says have a fall, 1 in 80, 1 in 100, wherever it is, outdoors or an internal wet area. But it doesn't say that it has to be sand cement 4-to-1. You can have a waterproof screed, and there are options out there. But I agree with you, because of the way things are done 90% of the time, waterproof on top of the screed in a shower and on a balcony floor, definitely. Nooks come back. How we going? Frame to handover. So much can go wrong as for an install. Window flashings, WRB, insulation, never checked and covered up. Too important to ignore. And I'm really glad you brought that up, Nook, because, that's one thing that we overlook. How many times windows fail on commercial buildings? The ingress of water, and we think it'd be a bit of silicon. And it doesn't matter what the manufacturer is, it's in the design detail. But again, who's responsible? When that builder's warranty runs out in 5-7 years, that's really when these problems arise, and you start to get excess absorption of moisture in the structure, and there is no legal responsibility to come back to the builder. Now, I would really like a good ass lawyer to have one of these buildings they've invested in deal with these problems and then set a precedent out there where someone's going to get taken to court and prove and set a new standard, because I can't see it happening any other way until we get this right. What do we got here? Colin, why not waterproof under the screed and on top of the screed? Sure to be sure, definitely. George is with us. How are you? Sandwich membrane is the way to go with an additive in the screed. Exceed the standard, don't follow it to a minimum. Thank you, George. And one of my favourite lines is, we've got to stop worrying about the minimum requirement and doing the maximum. Hey, Big Phil. How you going, Lloyd? Hey, good to see you, mate. Warranties are 10 years, not 5 to 7 years. Not in every state, Colin. That's the problem. Not in every state. I'm not sure where you are, but you go state by state, that is changing in the housing industry. And if anything, we've seen a reduction in those periods over the last few years. Sorry, I'm not talking about bringing in a surveyor coming in between frame and handover for a waterproofing inspection. Would hold builders accountable. This is probably why we miss a lot of tenders. Totally agreed. Build in situ. You can literally do whatever you want. Yeah, and it's ridiculous. And agreed with that. Have you got an additive and engineered screed? Gianni Tolling, yes, we do. You use a Gripset 11Y, and I'll give you a specification that you can put that in water. That would act as a waterproof system on its own. It has a potable water certificate when it's using a render. That's how phenomenal it is when it's used to the right specification. If you like more details, get hold of our tech line, and we'll give you the details on that product. But it's something you should have in your car for every day of the week. It's a get out of jail card all the time. Top marks, how are we going? Seeing some great work from you lately. Did my gap training yesterday. Good stuff. Fantastic. I'm glad that is the case. And Shandy is up in Sydney with that group. And I'm glad you got value out of it and you learned something from it. We can always be learning, but thanks for the feedback. Nemania's come back. Builders won't pay for more than the required minimum. Hence, Nemania, what I'm saying, if their length of liability is extended, you'll see that their asses will start to shake, and they'll do the right thing, get the right product, because at the end of the day, they've got to tick off, and it will also change the quality of builder that comes into the industry. You'll stop these dodgy fly-by-nighters that go, I'm just going to make a quick killing on this job, flog it off. I had a builder once tell me, and I wrote a blog on this, that he would rather pay his maintenance guy 45 grand a year going around home by home, with a silicon gun, plugging up all the issues until his warranty period's over, and it's like, then it's to you, to the homeowner. Said that in my face when I was trying to sell him a system once. Now, that's the mindset. And this is a massive volume builder. He had his Ferrari outside in the car park giving me that, and I wanted his clients to listen to that sort of just couldn't give a shit attitude. That is all wrong, and we need to change that. Has the industry become divided? Culture perceives, assumes compliance through documentation, reports, books, specification standards. There is this whole piece of that, John, at the moment, and the problem with it is that there's so many different angles that people are trying to plug the holes up and do the right thing. We don't have uniformity, and it needs to come from the top. What are the WA warranty time frame on residential construction? Darren, I'm not sure, but I think in WA it might be 6 years. Paul has come back and said, I steer away from Screeds as a builder. I prefer to use in-floor shower systems. If they work for you, then ideal. But you've got to make sure that for some clients with the different floor designs they might want, in-floor shower systems might not always be the case, and how they integrate to the rest of the waterproofing. But good comment. Got a few here on Instagram. Nook's come back, build in situ. Nook's 100% by build in situ. If you don't have to spend the extra time, money, why would you 99% of builders take this stance? Unfortunately. Silicon's only a band-aid. Yep, very true. Sisian Mehmet, how are you? Engineers, builders, contractors all need to be on the same page while building a project, and the VBA need to step up the game. So our friends in Victoria are speaking out loud, and very, very true. Guys, we've got a common thread here of what everyone's saying and commenting on, and I agree with you 100%, and I really enjoy the support that you've got on with this. But I mean, look at this. You guys would have seen that image today that was loaded up on our site. I mean, the guy that did that must have been paid, I don't know, $50. Concrete, you can't see the concrete's in shitty condition. I don't even think there's a bond breaker there. It must have taken the guy longer to spot fix all over those nail fixings on the cement sheet to get it right. It is unbelievable that we throw this up. I wonder if we actually gave these as a part of compliance to the homeowner during the building stage, that they had to view it so they could ask a question, because there's enough of this online now to show you that that's not how you waterproof. I mean, it's just, I mean, that one that we did this week on our Sealed for Good program, you can see, when you look at it online, you can see how the bitumen sheet's wrinkled. There's a solvent bitumen primer. Who does that? This one here with the door fixing. I mean, that's creative waterproofing to the point that's like a kid got hold of a brush for the first time and thought they'd work it out. What have we got here? Nook's come back. VBA non-existent. They chase rubbish niche problems instead of getting boots on the ground and call out simple issues. Well, the people are talking out loud, and I'm so glad that you are. I mean, that one there again, if you see that close up, that bath, incredible. If you can see close up on how that's been detailed around the top there, I'm laughing, but I'm crying on the inside. The industry must undergo a significant rethink of the workplace culture, putting aside matters that cause friction within the workplace, and reconsider the workplace culture. We need collaboration in place of confrontation, a remuneration system that rewards compliance and ambition rather than one which threatens and intimidates. Agreed, and it'll be really good if we actually had some sort of acknowledgement, like a compliance reward, that actually gives builders and contractors and trades the right, there's Instagram, the right reward to actually do the right thing. And, it's almost like your insurance goes up every time you've been called out. There's a lot of simple things here that we could do, but we're not there. Jared, how are you? VBA are toothless, according to Colin, and it's a plumbing issue or a violation of the legislation. Yeah, Jared is reminding me of that video we did together out at St. Peter's on that house, and that was incredible. And we still got that video on one of our, we might pull that one out again when we did that video of turn the tap on within seconds, there was a leak on a brand new shower. Sayan's come back. My brother just got his builder's license, and the only question asked regarding waterproofing was water stops. What a joke. And there you go. And so that is one thing. But then That's the builder getting the license. How many waterproofers have to get a license? And what are they getting? And I think what John was mentioning before here, if you've got dodgy suppliers or dodgy, because the industry just opens up to a whole lot of dodge because it knows there's a market for guys that are just going to listen to any shit that they feed them instead of the right details. And I know that we're pushing GripSet, but there are a lot of good companies and manufacturers out there that are doing the right thing and have got systems. They just need to be followed. You know, we're not the be-all, end-all solution. We've got lots of them, but there's good companies that are doing the right thing, have got the right compliance, are ethical. How do you find them? And that comes back to what I said before. You know, I was reading these warranties on some of these suppliers' products that get them made, and when you read the fine print, you know, that a 10-year warranty, but they don't cover any damages. They give you literally, they state on there that they can't control the conditions or the raw materials. This is a supplier. And then they're going to give you a warranty that's the cost of the replacement of the product. So if you bought a bucket for their cheap crap membrane for $70, that's what you're going to get back when there's the damage that happens, even if the membrane is considered to be the failure. Now, you can fight that, but it's going to cost you. But they've got that covered. Now, are people reading that? It's not on their buckets, but it's on their fine print on the data sheet. And that's why we talk about reading the data sheets. And I think, you know, now we've had COVID and people are getting used to using QR codes. QR codes are great to be utilized on buckets as well to get people to the information that counts. Okay, and so you're reading it. And to the point where even if you've got guys that might not have, English could be the second language, that they're actually able to see it in another way. Can it be translated? How can we make sure that we've got contractors that might want it in Asian or in Arabic or whatever it could be? We can offer that, you know, and do that. We've done that in Korean, we've done that in Arabic ourselves with GripSet to make sure that we're not limiting anybody in this space. So really important that we understand that data sheets should be the Bible. They're kept up to date, and that's what people refer back to. And the packaging is a very limited amount of information. Guthrie Homes have come back, I believe, to be actually licensed. You have to, one, be accredited and trained by the company products you're using. Also, sit a knowledgeable license test and show proven experience. I'm not sure if you're talking about waterproofing there, but if that's the case for waterproofing, that's definitely not around the country. I've seen guys that literally took a package working at a bank in 2 weeks' time, had a van with a roller brush, and when out there started quoting waterproofing jobs. Sad as it is, it's still true. And they lean off of someone else's trade license until they get a number. There's so many holes and ways and voids that people can get through the loopholes. We don't have a real tight system here. So we're talking about, I'm hearing everyone talk about builders going with the cheap. But they go with the cheap because the system allows them to. It wouldn't be the case. Sorry, Guthrie's saying that. I'm suggesting that should be the rule. Agreed. Agree with you 100%. That's one step of the way. But let's get back to having people working for builders that know that builder is going to be inspecting and wants the best of the best, because the builder is going to be held responsible and they're coming after you if you do the wrong thing. And like I said, if we could treat building a home or a building, even a commercial building, like building an aeroplane, building an automotive vehicle, when you look at it, the investment that people are going to put in a home and a building is far greater over time than what they're going to have on a plane ride. That you've got to get yourself right here. For the average Australian, a home owner is going to have that part. That's going to be their biggest expense ever. And yet, the problem that they've got is that they could end up dealing with a cost that's just going to really burn that debt ongoing, because when those maintenance issues come on, they can compound and add another 20, 30, 50 grand of damage that they've got to pay for. Can you show the photos of the failed waterproofing work again? I didn't get a chance to see them, Fads. Look, I'll tell you what we'll do. If you go on in the Facebook post today, you'll see them all, and there's some classics there. Achieving a high quality result is too important to leave self-regulation certification. The consequences in the short and longer terms of not mandating are worsening. if I've got all that right. And potentially hazardous. Look, it's on and on. Darren's asked me, moisture barrier is one that I don't think many guys are using before waterproofing. Darren, you're right. Particularly for external works, it needs to happen. George is saying that most of the repairs we do are for new builds. There you go. That's incredible. I spoke to a project manager from a very large, successful Australian commercial builder. He reckons that there's not one building they hand over that hasn't got a waterproofing issue before they've handed over. So they already know about it at the handover phase, and they're trying to deal with it or just stop the bleed before they can go and tackle it. How many waterproofing contractors are insured to have professional indemnity? I'm tipping no one. Well, Colin's asked that question. Guys, answer it. How many of you got professional indemnity insurance? And that's Colin's a builder, so he's asking that question. While producing infrastructure repair solutions is science, applying them is an art. My experience is commensurate with the regards for choosing the appropriate product and using the correct application technique, both equally important in achieving long-term durability, minimising long-term liability. We've got one that's got there, as a builder, if I have a failure, I have to pay to rectify it. No, not anyone else. The buck stops with me. I get that, Colin, but you are probably one of the more ethical ones that are doing the right thing. And you said that you're in an area where there's 10 years. There's a lot of others that don't do that, and they will literally, they know how the system works, and they'll keep pushing it onto the trade or the supplier or the manufacturer, or they'll bring them all in because they know if I bring them all in, the cost that's 100% mine becomes 1/5 of mine. And unfortunately, that is the mindset. It's wrong, but true. There we go. Fads is telling me that 99% of the work so far this year has been on building repairs. I'm hoping that some of you might actually even just pass this on to the authorities in your area to ensure that they see what is going on here, because we're going to talk, we're talking a half hour on this, and it's a great turnout tonight, but this is never going away. You know, how do we fix it? How do we get it right? My piece is, you know, we've been talking for the last couple of years on this program about contractors, educating contractors, training them, educating certifiers to know what they're looking for, you know, what's a compliant product, what's a non-compliant product, but where are we going in terms of having the builder accountable? And I want to push for that because it's too easy, and not that I want to portion all the blame on the builder. I want the builder to be responsible, because they lift the high standard, they'll then lift the standard of who comes under them. Every trade, tilers, waterproofers, carpenters, roofers, window contractors, the flooring guys, and then you've got a fair game because all the dodgy crap is not there, and pricing's at a similar level. We reduced the maintenance and the rectification works that many of you said that's all you do, and then we can push forward and have an industry where we build buildings with a generational value. What do we got here? The bottom line, Phil, are we going to see change? Well, I think we get to the point now, John, that, and it's Colin's saying it needs to start with design and designers, and it definitely starts there, but I believe design and designers are very easy to educate, because a lot of times when I speak to architects, yes, they want to look at the visual, but inherently they want to do the right thing, because if their building looks shitty after a couple of years, it's not a good reflection on them. It's what happens in between that and the handover phase. But going back to the change, John, my piece on this is that we need to bring authorities into these conversations. You know, insurers. So Colin brought up about insurers before. I know insurers now are really starting to analyse what their payouts are on this constantly. And it's not as easy now to just put that back. So, you know, where do we actually have the liability and the accountability on that? And we've got to try and get the authorities to ensure that that is happening, and we get it to that point. Like I said before, we get a different quality builder that comes into the industry. And I'm not saying we've got very good quality builders now, but unfortunately, it's always the minority that create that loudest noise because we see the damage. I see some builders that do more than what they should, but you know, they're few and far between. And the problem is they're the ones doing the exclusive level and the premium stuff, because that's where the market comes into it in terms of who can afford that. What have we got here? What moisture barrier can guarantee stop negative pressure on retaining walls? Check out E60, and we're happy to help you there, or the C1P. Fads, the contractor licensing guidelines in New South Wales are poor. I've been hearing for a few $100, individuals are achieving trade licenses. I've seen a Tyler spot fix 40 mil once. Yep, we have too. And it's unbelievable still seeing that. Is there a correlation between certain products that offer a warranty and also failing a year or so after the warranty? Hasn't personally happened, but would be informative to know. My comment to that is the word warranty is used very loosely. We had a session on this previously last year. You need to understand what a warranty means. And if you read between the fine print and understand what it gives you, then, and only then, you've got something that will ensure that you understand what a warranty that says it replaces the cost of the bucket versus all the other ones that have got a bullshit clause versus the ones that say they guarantee this, 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 and this. And I can tell you there's some companies out there that do offer and do it, and they stand by it. But they have different methods and processes on how they train and offer those warranties on contractors that use their product, and that's the separator, including us. Anything over 20K, all trades need to have HBCF certificate and insurance buyer protection. All right, the remedial market has grown over the last 10 years, especially in Sydney. I found most guys that did the mid-2000s are now in the remediation sector. So have we, George, and that's no surprise. Collins mentioned here, once upon a time, building surveys used to inspect waterproofing and insulation. And I remember when I first started in this industry, we used to have the ENWS, the water system guys, inspect the hookup of baths and shower trays. No longer. But the technology is there now that we could ensure that these things don't progress any further until they're even loaded up on an app. Why not? You know, everyone's got smartphones, cameras. I spoke to one builder and he wants to use drones to keep an eye on what the trades are doing. You know, that says a lot because he's what's happening between when supervisors visit sites and not. Okay, where are we? Questions coming through. We need a plan to engage highly skilled practitioners from each field to participate in developing an industry best practice and a digital platform to restore confidence in the construction industry. Agreed. I would like to ensure that we get a situation where we have not just that, but the right people looking at when standards are there to be updated and real change. You know, I'm not sure if we are seeing change at the pace it needs to be. And I think from what I'm hearing of all of you tonight, we're annoyed with where the industry is. Obviously, the dodgy ones aren't watching. Or they're probably just going back to see if those photos, they can delete them from their phones. And the piece here is where we stand as an industry to get this going. Now, you need, you know, HIA and master builders are powerful associations. Unfortunately, trade associations are weak, or weak in this part, so particularly the tiling side and the waterproofing side. There's no power there, and you've got to question who's making up these committees. You know, are they pushing their barrow? We need a representation across the board from different people, but this needs to be this voice needs to keep getting louder. Otherwise, change won't happen. It's as simple as that. When I was an apprentice, my boss told us that if we didn't install the insulation in every spot, somebody would come through with a thermal camera and make us fix it. Good, and I bet you did it properly. We will always work within the boundaries that we've got there. And if those boundaries are this wide, we'll work outside those boundaries and we'll stretch the limit. Pull it in. That's compliance. That's accountability. That's really keeping people very on a tight rein. But the buck's got to stop with them. And it's so different across the country in so many different circumstances. And someone has got to get out there and listen to this noise because it keeps getting louder. And unfortunately, while we keep getting guys that are lifting the game, we still have this situation that I showed you before. You know, that crap. I mean, that one's a classic. That's a shower base that's not even complete. No power, no bond breaker. Who knows? It's so annoying. I don't want to talk about it. We wanted to get this session out of the way for the first one for the year. Paul's joined us. Paul, thank you. Waterproofing regulations in Victoria are non-existent. Basically, anyone can trade as long as they give a compliance certificate that complies with the standard. Most wouldn't know the standard. Yep. And I also question how many of those compliance certificates actually comply with what they're actually seeing, what products are compliant when they really look into it. And we could uncover a whole conversation on that discussion. Brendan, do you agree with the AS3740 about 1500 mil radius from the rule? Yellow tongue in bathrooms should full floor membranes, regardless of substrates, be compulsory. I'll say this again, Brendan, thanks for joining in. That's a nonsense rule, the 1500 mil radius rule from the shower head. Timber shouldn't be used as a bathroom substrate, full stop. Shouldn't be anywhere where there's going to be moisture because of thermal moisture that impacts timber. And secondly, I'd like to see any room with a shower in it is fully tanked, not just when it's a disabled access, fully tanked, ground floor or upper floor. Tank and treat them like it will contain water and will eliminate a lot of those issues. And we also need to make sure that other trades are doing their job, e.g. wall lining fixes, to make sure those gaps between the wall and floor are to the manufacturer's recommendation, e.g. James Hardy, etc. Anyway, guys, we're going to go into different sessions. You're going to catch me on this. Would love to hear your feedback from tonight in terms of other content you want to hear us go on. That question that came up early in the night about cold joints, check out the elastoproof joint band or our BRW PF tape. It'll do the job for cold joints. If it's an expansion joint, you need the elastoproof joint band or XP. But if you've got any questions, as usual, come online or ring our 1-800 number and we're here to help give you that. Colin, thank you very much. Guys, thanks for all those comments. We could go on. What's your opinion on waterproofing rooftop gardens? There's always a way of doing them successfully. It's just you got to do it the right way, and there's no shortcut in that one. But we're going to do roof gardens on a whole nother session because that's becoming a more design-friendly application for a lot of architects we deal with, and I want to go into that one in detail because it also brings up bioresistance and all sorts of challenges for waterproofers. Yeah, waterproof should be a trade. We know that. It's fantastic. Look, guys, thanks for the feedback. Your engagement's been fantastic. If you want to see those photos, you missed them, get on the Facebook page. Don't forget to subscribe to our Sealed for Good program. If you haven't already, pass it on. We've got lots of good content coming up in future live sessions. Until next time, I'll see you then. Where are we here?